Hey, welcome to the 155th episode of Just Shoot It, a podcast about filmmaking, screenwriting, and directing. Today's episode is brought to you by patron James Scogan, the Scoganator. I'm Oren Kaplan.
And I'm Matt Enlow. Today we've got Alison Eakle on. She's the head of fiction and nonfiction for Shondaland. She brought us shows like How to Get Away with Murder, The Catch, Still Star-Crossed, Station 19, and For the People.
She's like part of probably one of the most successful network TV show empires that's on right now, right?
Yeah. They've got a whole night, Thursday nights. She owns. She just dominates. And on top of that, to make things even more interesting, not only does she have a great history in network broadcast television, Shondaland, in case you're not up on the trades, has made a big historic shift to Netflix, and they've got a huge deal there as well. So we talk about what it is to make a Shondaland show, to be in the big leagues, and also the transition from traditional network scripted series to streaming series.
And my favorite part, as usual, is when we talk about what she likes to hear in a pitch. I'm actually curious if our listeners are over that question, because I pretty much ask everyone that question.
Yeah. I am maybe a little over it.
Yeah, I think you are, but I am not. I feel like until I walk into a room and instantly sell a show, I still need the answer to that question. No, I mean, obviously it's different and like, we haven't had a lot of like network, broadcast network TV people on the show, and they want different things than
Alison has made the most television shows our parents have heard of any of our guests, for sure. Yeah,
and she's done a ton of other things too. I mean, she is the head of nonfiction. It is a very good episode. She used to host a show about Dawson's Creek, so she is very good on the mic.
So good.
So I'm very excited to hear what people think about this conversation. We've gotten incredibly positive feedback about this development month.
I know. I'm so bummed. This is episode 4 of 4 on development month. What a wonderful end, though. Right?
Yeah. This was Matt's idea. I will give him credit for it. And I was like...
You did not want to do it.
I was like, okay, development month. What am I going to ask him? Like, what they like to hear in a pitch? And it turns out that, yes.
You can ask it 4 times and not get bored.
But honestly, I would love to hear from our listeners. If you can email us or tweet at us if you like these episodes. We've heard from a few people already, but if you want us to do things like this again, we're talking about doing like a producer month and doing a writer month. And obviously we will keep checking in with our director friends as well. But let us know what you think about this.
It would be cool if we did like a themed month that then culminated with an event.
What, like we do like a pitch fest at the end of development?
No, the opposite of that. I just mean like we all eat pizza together.
Patch fest.
Yeah.
Pizza.
So speaking of pizza, I've been eating a lot of it. Oren, what have you been working on lately?
I don't know. I've had actually a pretty busy couple months. I'm working on this thing right now, which is it's a commercial, but it's like a cross promotion for a big studio movie that's coming out.
Yeah, it's sort of like the Miracle Workers thing I did before that you kind of told me about in the first place, like where companies will showcase the big movies and brands and stuff that they have coming out, and then brands will kind of say like, oh, well, we want to be as cool as the X-Men, for instance. Yeah,
so it's weird because they don't give you any money, but they give you kind of some access to like IP and things like that.
Right. Which is pretty incredible.
Yeah. So we had a meeting today. We're building a very specific costume that's supposed to look like
an iconic costume.
Yeah, that's supposed to look like this element of the movie. And when we were at the costume meeting today, the director of the actual movie, this big, $100 million studio film, probably 80 million.
I mean, a blockbuster movie.
Yeah,
like
a big,
as big as they
summer.
Yeah.
Movie was there to come look at this costume that we were looking at. And I kind of felt like even though I was the director of the spot, like all anybody cared about was what this other director thought. And he brought his dog and everyone loved his dog. I just felt like it was kind of like a celebrity, but it was a director.
Yeah. And you're the director of this spot.
But I'm the director, yeah.
That person is not the director of anything except for the movie that you are referencing in your spot.
Yeah, and no one even introduced me to him. So I felt weird being like, hey, I'm the director.
All of a sudden, like, everyone who was like you were working with has turned around and is kissing someone else's butt, basically.
But it's like you're the second director, You're like the less important director on some of these things.
Yeah.
And it's weird, and it made me kind of think about, like, do I care about that stuff? It made me almost wonder, like, is part of me wanting to be the director is wanting when I'm like on set or like involved in the pre-production to be like, hey, I'm the guy that's
Special
kind of
Oren.
like,
Yeah, I'm the boss.
running the show a little bit.
Yeah. People are going to laugh a little more at my jokes.
Yeah.
I had a similar experience that I don't think we've talked about.
No, not on the podcast for sure.
For a show, I can't give details on this one, unfortunately, which is
but there's like a big celebrity.
And it was one of those kind of shoots where you're kind of a guest on the series is set, right? So like you're kind of walking on in between, not setups. So like the crew was away for on location while I was shooting there and stuff, but I was with the star of the show, who's been on TV for quite some time. And, I say hello and all this stuff. We've got like an hour and a half, and like the crew's going to be coming back soon. We've only got 30 minutes in the spot, blah, blah, blah. So it's chaotic, and we don't have a ton of time to prep. And I say hello and start to show this person the blocking, and he says to me, "Bitch, I'm on TV." And we all have a good laugh because he says it in a funny way, but then also
he's telling you like, don't tell me what to do.
Don't tell me what to do. I've got it. I'll show you.
Even though you're the director.
I'll show you what I'm going to do, and then we'll go from there. Which is so fascinating because you find a huge spread of types of talent where some people...
I would say that's unexpected. That's not the norm.
Also, tell you what, it threw me for a curveball. But there are people who are like dutifully will do the job, and they're like, who are you? Why are we here? What's going on? Who aren't going to show you any respect, but you are just going to do it because their agent told them they had to or whatever. Where you feel like, interviewer number 45 at a press junket or something.
Yeah.
And then there are people who are like, oh, you're here to promote me. Thank you. How can I help? I want my thing to be successful. And I saw that at Comedy Central all the time. And I can say with absolute certainty that I felt like Key and Peele, those guys were so grateful and engaged and smart. And even if they didn't totally get it, they were inquisitive and learned the power of promotion while we were kind of all doing it together and were in tune with us. And you wanted to work harder for them as a result.
Well, let me ask you this. If you saw Key or Peele at a coffee shop, would you walk up to them and say, what's up?
I saw Keegan at a mess hall and said hello, and he was excited to see me. But that guy is, I think I've said this on the show already, but like, there's not a better person at being friendly than Keegan-Michael Key.
Yeah, I have also seen him at mess hall and also said hello, and he was also excited to see me.
yeah, exactly.
I'm just kidding.
Eye contact, firm handshake, great laugher, makes you feel incredible.
Well, if you saw this other celebrity that you just worked with, is it
this
okay?
person forgot me in between blinks.
Right. Well, I did stuff with Harrison Ford, with Will Arnett, with Jimmy Kimmel, with Sarah Silverman, with Jack Black, Selena Gomez. I saw Selena Gomez at like a sushi restaurant like a year after we worked together. I mean, there's just like zero recognition of who I am,
Yeah.
And these are celebrities. They have thousands of people. Like they walk out their door and everyone is looking at them, right?
Yeah.
So they're used to people trying to make eye contact with them.
And they meet directors all the time. They're doing commercials. They're doing late night spots. They're doing cameos on their friends' TV shows. Like they meet the captain of each of these ships. They're on a lot of ships too, right? So like I've noticed that I have gotten worse at remembering crew members and I really hate that about myself. Like I'm kind of beating myself up over it lately. And it's just like, look, when you meet 50 people a week, that's just a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty good at faces. I might not know their names, but I'll be like, hey, have we worked together before? And then they'll be like, yeah, I cut your hair yesterday at Floyd's.
And then you're like, yes.
Yeah. No, but I have worked with like Tim Meadows,
Yeah.
He
for a couple days. You worked with Tim Meadows.
It was a 2-day shoot. Yeah. But he like texted me after and he's like, can I see a cut? And like but what's weird is the other actors, they were like amazing too. And they were like, when we were on set, they were responsive to me and we talked and they, were cool. It seemed because we were doing more like promotional type things, they, the director, it's a short-lived thing. They work with a lot of directors, like you said.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's interesting. But yeah, I think the answer is it is fun to kind of be like in charge and for people to, be excited to be part of the creative process that you're leading in a way.
Yeah.
But also
explicitly, that's your job.
Yeah. But also, I guess at the end of the day, like if the thing we make is really good, then that's kind of all that matters. And the people that you worked with will hopefully remember that you're the person that made that.
Right.
Yeah. Egos, man.
Yeah.
Can't live with them. Pass the beer nuts. Is that what they say?
I guess so. I think also it's easy to forget, and this is a theme that we learn in all of like every development episode, is that like everyone you're working with has a boss. And so some of it is that like when that director shows up, that director works more closely with your client's bosses.
Right.
And so if the director is stoked about the spot, then maybe their bosses hear about it and then maybe they look good for it. Like there's a lot of politics to it as well. And so
right.
You just can't control it,
It also makes me feel excited for when I'm directing the $100 million movie and then some young director is doing the promo work for my movie, and then I would go.
You make eye contact with them and talk
I'd be
to them.
like, hey, yeah.
Like, how can I help? Are they taking care of you? Yeah.
Yeah. And I would be like, I'd love to do. So the director that came today asked where we're shooting and asked if he could come on set and stuff. So
yeah, see, there you go.
It's like, yeah, but no notes, okay?
Well, I hope you just need to get this director on the podcast.
Oh yeah, I will try to.
Exciting.
Okay, well, anything else you want to add?
I think, you know what? I have one tiny thing. So often, we talked about how I released the music video. Last week or a week before.
Potty Mouth.
For Potty Mouth. I realized I have, for the first time, a really awesome sequence of Vimeo links that show the progress of that.
Oh, how it came to be.
How it came to be.
Including your treatment, right?
So the treatment I did is a video treatment. So you can compare that with Andy Young's rough cut to the final version and see kind of how they all came together. So that's pretty neat. So I'm going to post that on the...
Oh, because it's a music video, the timing doesn't change.
The timing doesn't change,
Split screen that shite.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Or the old VFX reel move is like you have like a slider.
You do the slider on it?
Yeah.
Well...
You don't have to.
The problem is it's the fun between Andy's and mine would be there, but like the changes are significant, but like it's not like a huge wow factor. I think maybe it would be more interesting to see the finished version compared with the treatment version. That's interesting. Maybe I'll do that. That's fun.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, before we talk to Alison, I want to talk to you, dear listeners, about our Patreon page. Patreon.com/justshootitpod. What is Patreon? Can you remind me?
I like to explain it as like a rolling Kickstarter. It's a way for you to subscribe a small amount of money or a large amount of money if you feeling generous. But, a consistent amount of money that you're willing to donate to the project month over month to show your appreciation and support for the show. That money goes to things like paying our editor, Jay, who edits every single episode. That goes towards funding all of our live events so that we can keep them free and open to everyone, which is in the spirit of the show. And frankly, keeping the show free in general, right? Because there's a lot of hosting fees and blah, 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 blah. You guys don't care. You get it. It's a lot of stuff and money and time to make the show run. And so giving us, $1 a month, that's a quarter an episode. $4 a month. No, you get the picture.
Well, great. Well, without further ado, let's jump in with Alison Eakle. Alison Eakle, how's it going?
It's going great.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So we were talking off mic. You've done everything.
That's right. I'm out. This is great, guys.
Cool. You're the worst.
My swan song podcast interview.
You're really bad at that game. Have I ever?
Yeah.
Or is that, what is it? No, never have I.
Never have I ever, I think.
I've done at least like a little bit of everything. Maybe not kind of gone the long stretch run on all of it. But yeah, and some of it's been as an assistant.
And you mean in TV, in the world of TV, right?
Yeah, and like film too.
Oh, really? You did like
I started
feature
out.
stuff?
Yeah, I started out at Paramount Pictures assisting an EVP of marketing.
Wow.
Oh, cool.
Because it was the first job I could get, and it paid well overtime. And I just
moved
moved
here. Are you allowed
here.
to tell us which movies you worked on?
Oh yeah, and it was when DreamWorks Animation was still a part of it. So everything from Shrek to Revolutionary Road, which I really think
That's a good
encompasses
spread.
the gamut of human experience.
Yeah, sure. But just a small part of the alphabet.
That's
But so now,
Yeah.
you bounced around a little bit, did a lot of assisting, and now you are at Shondaland. What is your
right.
official title at Shondaland?
Head of fiction and nonfiction. See, everything.
So that is fascinating. So does that mean
Could they not just call it head?
Right.
Head
So I'm head of one department. I have an awesome colleague, Sarah Fisher, who's head of production.
Okay.
And really, it's sort of a nice, warm, all-encompassing title for the creative development side of things. Getting those projects from the very early stages into a couple of good seasons and running on their own. And then a lot of what I do to support shows that have been on the air, like ABC, for more than a couple seasons, you're not in the nitty gritty so much as you just swoop in when there's a really specific staffing support need or a really complicated crossover or a very specific episode that needs all hands on deck, or just trying to flag great directors for the producing director to consider, as he or she puts together a lineup.
right? That's still quite a bit, right?
Yes.
and so the other thing that's interesting about Shondaland in particular is that you were doing a ton of network shows, right?
Right.
And then quite famously, you kind of have made a transition into a big Netflix deal.
Yeah.
How much can you tell us about that?
I mean, there's been a lot. I think there's been a lot said about it actually out in the world.
In case our listeners aren't reading the trades, what's the...
Listen, out in Variety.
told you.
Right. The idea was that Shonda and Betsy Beers, her producing partner and partner in crime, and my other awesome boss were looking ahead to the next big thing of what would be the next big jump for them. I think they were at ABC 12 years, long time. And so the Netflix opportunity came about, and I was not privy to the very early stage details of that, obviously. But we made the transition 2 summers ago, and it was as Scandal was ending. And we had our eyes open of like, oh, in this format, you can literally, truly go ahead and find out whatever story you're in love with and want to tell. And there is a format.
Wait, format of Scandal or format of Netflix?
At Netflix, there is, it's a home for all kinds of storytelling, right? So suddenly it's like not just 1 hour drama.
Sure. Not just ABC.
Miniseries.
Yeah.
Right. And honestly, I think we became very known for one certain kind of show at ABC. Strong, messy, complicated female heroines.
Highly rated.
That's right. Highly
Successful.
rated.
Yeah.
Shocking, emotional, take you on the roller coaster, serialized procedurals. Like it was a very specific brand. And then it kind of all got blown open with the idea of the Netflix deal. And the idea of like, that was one part of us, and the DNA of those shows is still very much a part of everything we do. But now, in this new world, there's going to be an opportunity to do all kinds of things. One of the first projects we announced and got excited about was a feature-length documentary.
Right. I was going to say the unscripted part of your title is a little confusing, right?
Sure. And I mean, there's worlds in which we may explore doing traditionally unscripted shows and doc series too down the line. But it's been really interesting kind of seeing how the brand has evolved. And I think when we announced our initial slate this past, I think it was like June or July, it was really interesting to get people's reactions.
Is the documentary like how to really get away with murder? Because
Exactly.
I am interested.
We murder people and then see if we can get away with it. It's about the...
It's a reality competition show.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, cool. Kind of some comedy.
Yeah, it's very noisy. It is, it's called The Hot Chocolate Nutcracker, and it is kind of focusing on Debbie Allen's take on the Nutcracker that she has been consistently doing for going on 10 years now. And it's a look at what it is to be a dancer through that lens.
Interesting.
Which,
cool.
again, I don't know if anyone would have been like, Scandal, Hot Chocolate Nutcracker.
Right.
But it was all of these projects have been a great way to expand people's ideas of like, what does the Shondaland brand mean?
Right. But can't you also just like fudge it a little and be like, it's about strong women, right?
Well, and it's so funny because you hear that a lot now. And I'm a real sucker for a strong woman, but I think the stuff that interests us about our female characters it always goes so far beyond that, because in a weird way, it's so one note to just be like, oh, look how strong that person is.
Right. I didn't mean that in terms of like, that's what it's about. It just more in like how you rationalize that why Shondaland should make this thing.
Yes.
Like in the same way, like Matt and I, pitch on commercials a lot. And I'm always like, I have a kid. I could do this commercial about families, or I drive a car. I could do a car commercial. Like you always find that
you have to
that logical next step
exactly.
to lead you to what you want to make.
No, and there is a very specific, as I said, a DNA to like what we do, right? It is about what is the experience of being a woman in all its shades in the world. We tend to focus our stories on the families you make, the workplace families, the friend families, the families you'd never be a family with, but for the fact you guys murdered someone together, that kind of family.
Sure, of course.
It's, about...
I have 2 of those families. Confession.
Do they know about each other?
No.
Oh, good. It's probably easier. It's cleaner to keep it all separate. But like the stories you feel like you never see, that is what drives us. That's still the stuff that even in this new incarnation at Netflix, playing in a slightly different field, still drives the character-based storytelling we want to do.
Right. Right.
Cool. And you guys did you guys like buy Raleigh Studios or rent out like every soundstage there?
I don't know the details of that. I do know I live there now. I stare out at Paramount where it all began at the window of my office. But yeah, we're in a building in Raleigh, in Raleigh Studios.
Did you go to film school, or what's your background?
Yeah, so I was at Georgetown University undergrad and went there very Tracy Flick, like, oh, I can't wait to take all the government classes and run for office and be a high-powered lobbyist. I just wanted power, guys.
Yeah.
And then I got into those classes and realized everyone else was even scarier than I was. And I was like, no, yeah. I can't do this. And I happened to take...
Wait, you can study lobbying? I thought you have to be like, have all these positions and then you become a lobbyist. No?
I don't know. I knew a lot. I felt like it became as common as like getting a job in consulting. You wound up going to work for lobbying firms. I don't know where you start out on that sexy ladder that is lobbying.
You're not whispering to senators like on day 1.
I hope it's by day 4, though. That's very intriguing.
Yeah.
That's a Shondaland show, just whispering at senators. Getting your power play moves in D.C. I actually, that was a big part of the fun of working on Scandal, too, is, 2 paths in a wood, man.
Yeah.
I definitely wanted to be a part of the D.C. scene for a while, but I wound up being there at the same time as some really exceptional people, some of whom were all mentored by this one professor, John Glavin. And it was like Jonah Nolan was like a senior when I was a freshman and had this guy and would come back and talk to us right around the time Memento was out. Mike Birbiglia, Nick Kroll, John Mulaney.
They all went to school with you?
Yeah, they were like a couple years older, a couple years younger. And like,
and also those guys like just out of the gate were crushing, right?
They creative writing majors? What did they
probably
do?
like English and religion. I mean, like there was
like
just
campus famous immediately.
100%.
Yeah.
And particularly there was GPIG, the Georgetown Players Improv Group, which has since changed its name. But it was like at one point I think the lineup was like Birbiglia, Mulaney, Nick Kroll, and Jacqueline Novak. So it was like, this is stellar. I found like an old pamphlet once cleaning out as I was moving. And I was like, this is crazy that this is all at the same time. And then there were also like the filmmakers, like Mike Cahill, Zalbat Mangach was my year. Britt Marling was a little younger than I was. So it was this group of people who like dared to dream and be like, wait a minute, maybe, just maybe, there is a career for us in this. It's not the craziest idea that you would go to Georgetown but wind up in that field.
Right. How infectious too, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just got to be magic is in the air for that
100%.
Period of time.
Wait, but so is it not a giant school, Georgetown?
No, it's not. I mean, I would say it's mid-sized.
So it's
right?
not like UCLA or USC.
No, well, maybe I would say USC is a fair comp. I don't know. I think we had like 6,000 undergrad.
Oh, that's
but there's also, it's like, if you narrow it down to the people who are interested in the creative arts.
Oh yeah, let's be real.
All of a sudden, it's
Not a lot
it's
of
a
us.
niche. Yeah.
Well, right, but I'm asking because I was a computer science and engineering major and at UCLA, and I didn't know anyone I didn't know what comedians or improvisers and stuff were on campus.
Sure.
Yeah.
So how did you, from being like studying politics, get
Yeah, this is
to
a good question. I also very early on realized I wanted to be a part of the closed circuit Georgetown University television. A lot of eyeballs on that, let me tell you.
Oh, that's cool.
I ran
Trojan Vision. I get you.
Thank you. I was like, I can be a star in this very small pond. But I immediately signed up.
Doing political shows?
No, doing like Dawson's Creek live recap shows,
Oh,
like
fun.
Dawson's Creek would air, and then you
man.
could tune in.
Talking Creek?
What was it? Not Dawson's Eakle, although that was a joke on my name. But I think it was G Talk Live was the show. And it was some weird hybrid of like an 80s Donahue meets like a call-in show
yeah.
meets you name it. We
Dawson's Speak.
Is that available? Can I get in my time machine and use that? And literally people would I would host that one. My friends Aaron Polkay and Brian Walsh would host other ones, but you could call in and like have a real conversation about what went down on the creek that episode,
Yeah.
So we do that kind of stuff. Mike Cahill starred in and co-wrote and produced this a sitcom called The Wanderer. I wish I had it on tape somewhere.
Sure.
It was.
Wait, did Mike Cahill, is he the OA?
He's Another Earth. Zal and Britt are the OA.
Okay.
So let me bring it down a notch, guys. 9/11 happens my senior year. I basically fully freeze up. All I do is eat Oreos in my basement and watch CNN. I think we're all we're in DC. My best friend's in New York. We're like, okay. And so I put everything on pause, all those aspirations. I've been taking screenwriting classes and playwriting classes and doing GUTV and stuff. And I knew I wanted to go to film school, but I just kind of hit stop. And I did the safe thing, and I stayed in a job kind of running SAT prep company courses
Did
for
you work
like
for Kaplan by any chance?
No, it was a very small one. Capital Educators. We taught at the school Brett Kavanaugh matriculated from. I'll give you a little idea.
Yeah.
The
Oh, cool.
clientele
Gotcha.
sometimes we got.
Copy that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically I did that for a year and then did my applications and wound up getting into UT Austin. And I was like, when am I going to live in Texas again? Probably, I'll probably live in New York. I'll probably live in LA. I will most definitely not ever just strike out for Texas. And I'm so glad I went. It was one of the best decisions I ever made. And I did a 3-year...
And that was a film program?
Yeah, 3-year MFA screenwriting. Like it was, when I went, it was an MA and became an MFA. And for those of you listening, the difference essentially is MFA becomes like a final degree. You can teach with it.
Right. So it's significantly, better, helpful, right? Like
Totally.
At least it like makes your parents feel a little bit
Oh
better.
yeah, or you know,
or you. Sure.
You're like, oh, I might work someday.
Feels good to put the F in
That's
MFA.
the motherfucking arts. That's I basically was like, this is a real plan. But the reason I really wanted to go to grad school is I saw what the classes the actual like studying, doing the hard work at Georgetown gave me. And I was like, imagine if I have 2 to 3 years to devote to those kind of classes exclusively. And it's a state school. I was getting a fellowship. I'm like, I can maybe afford let's just take the leap and do it. But I don't recommend graduate film school to everyone, blanket statement. Like not by a long shot.
Why wouldn't you recommend it?
I think a lot depends on what your base level of knowledge and resources already is when you finish college. I think going to an undergraduate program at some place like USC or NYU or Florida State where you've made short films and you've worked with teams and you made contacts, because a lot of film schools just, at least the graduate level, yes, there's the instructional work, but it's really time to create projects and meeting people that you will kind of grow up with as a class, right? And have those connections.
And do you find that you're still connected to your UT classmates?
Totally.
Yeah.
I see a lot of them on a regular basis. Not all have stayed in the industry, but a lot of them have. And in particular, my fellowship was funded by the Mishner Center, which is like an exceptional writer's workshop where you get paid to go to school.
Oh, wow.
What a novel concept. Don't worry, I wasn't in that. They just threw some money at me to go to RTF, radio, television, film. But I got to meet all the Mishner kids through that. And those are a lot of the people I stayed really bonded with. And a lot of them have wound up in television and film too. So I did do the traditional like film grad school. I was a script supervisor on Friends Films to see how it worked, which is what like a lot of writing students would do. I tried really hard to continue to bridge the gap between like the script.
I've never
I
heard
wanna
that
put
before.
What a great idea.
Wait, really?
We've never heard that.
Oh,
I mean, we've only
so
done
supervising.
155 episodes. So.
Well, no one tells you the secret of being a script supervisor is you just hang out with the director the entire time.
Yeah,
and you
you're
have
in
such
the
a
crow's
tight
nest.
bond.
Yeah.
Yes. You see every decision. They depend on you in a way that's really fulfilling. You stay focused and present in a way that keeps you open to learn a lot. And like I worked on a short that went to Sundance, Maryoon and the Flying Headscarf from like 2005.
Incredible. Yeah.
And I had no other marketable skills to be on a film set.
Right.
And
But
then I
saying,
acted in some.
I write. So
Yes.
then there you go. That's so
This
smart.
has the word script in it. Surely we can parlay this into something, but it's a great opportunity.
And you are a supervisor, regardless of what type.
Thank you.
Did you find it also satisfying, even if you were working on something that wasn't good?
Totally. Because you would just have fun with, and it's so funny. This is what I always say. Being a producer on a student film, I don't know if this has been covered as well. It's like, can you get free pizza? Right. So it's, can you generate free food? But learning kind of, watching all these people pull together something out of thin air, no matter what the outcome. I co-wrote shorts that were then with a director, a friend of mine, who's now out here too. And would I say that every piece of it came out exactly as I imagined, or I'm a genius writer? And it was no, but that's a learning experience in and of itself.
That's what film school is for.
Yeah. It's getting out there and doing it. And then I graduated 2006, moved back to New York for 2 hot seconds because my best friend was finishing Columbia MFA film school. And then she and her boyfriend and I and all of his friends, like big group of people, just migrated here from like October of 2007 or 2006 to January 2007.
Cool. Well, let me jump back to a little closer to present, but on the same note.
I'm going to step it out. Let's do year by year.
Okay, so assistant job. Oh,
Yeah.
Marketing was first, right? And
Yeah. Then-
I'm teasing,
yeah.
sorry.
Went back home for 2 months.
To the Jersey Shore.
Well, so I'm curious. So you went to film. I mean, obviously you have a pretty impressive film pedigree, and all these friends of yours, from Georgetown, and your other friend from Columbia. Now you're in a position where you are getting shows made from a lot of different people. What percentage of the creative people you think you work with went to film school?
A lot of the people we've created shows with, I don't know that they have.
Interesting. Yeah.
Somebody who comes to mind right away, Paul William Davies, the exceptional creator of For the People. He had a life as a lawyer before transitioning to writing. And he did both for a very long time too. And it makes sense. I do know he did it for quite a few years. That's why I try to encourage people that it's not, I always say this, there's no shame in being a 30-something assistant or making that jump, because there's no like set timeline out here.
Right.
There's no rule.
Right. That's really great advice too, because I feel like it's easy to look at other assistants or people in the mailroom and those are hard jobs. They're long hours, and there are a lot of young people in those positions. So it's easy Hollywood is filled with pitfalls of comparing yourself to other people that are always going to cause problems for you. But it's especially easy to do that.
I answered phones until 6 years ago.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, that's just the truth of it, right?
But yeah, I guess even I'm curious, UT,
and I'm old.
UTA. You're not
a real old guy. Sorry.
Even at UTA or UT Austin, not the agency. I'm curious, was there anyone in their 40s, in your graduate program?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Weirdly enough, too, in the kind of film theory program, there would be people who were later in life, too. But absolutely, you would, especially international students who would come over in their 30s and 40s to begin a program, changing career, changing the country they lived in. So, yeah, it's, I wouldn't say much older than probably 40. But I would say there was a range up to that at school.
Right. Yeah. So I feel like some of our listeners might be listening and they're like, wow, from day one, she knew what she wanted to do, and she was hanging out with these celebrity, people that end up being celebrities.
And here I am, a TV writer. Wait a minute. I'm not a writer.
Right, yeah,
that's
a
the
great point.
thing. I made a change too.
I hear a lot of pivoting in this story, actually.
Oh, big time.
Right?
Yeah. I think what I realized when I moved out here is I had a job that was 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. It just required a lot of focus and energy, and I was not writing all the time on my off time. And I met people who would get up at 6 a.m. before their job in print journalism just to write their passion project. And I'm like, I guess that's not me. And what I realized I love is just working with writers and,
Yeah.
the bigger picture story stuff, right?
Yeah.
I was going to joke, actually, the trick to waking up extra early is to hate your job. 'Cause I was
Is that proven?
Yeah. I mean, I was in development at Comedy Central, and really, I was like, oh, this is
yeah.
somebody else's dream job. I don't really like it.
Yep.
And I would wake up extra early and write.
And I know some writers who would make the world's best development execs because they can just look at something in an instant, boil it down to what needs to be fixed or worked on or why it would or would not work. But the dating woe I used to have out here was like, oh my God, every guy in LA is just like, look, I got to get my career settled before I can date anyone, man. And in a weird way, I got it because the stakes are so high. You're giving up so much and people feel like you have to apply a laser focus and like really be in it to win it and really love what you're doing to make it work.
Yeah.
And it's kind of true.
Well, it is true. And it's also like a double-edged sword because I don't think there's a coincidence that a lot of the people that you're developing and creating shows with have life experience outside of what we're doing.
Yes.
Right?
100%.
Yeah. We haven't talked about it on the show in a long time, but I feel like one of my big messages, for lack of a better word, is that you don't have to like put off the rest of your life to have a career in Hollywood. Because I mean, I think we all, like every 25-year-old guy and girl here in LA is like, yeah, I got to get sell my first big script before I can date anyone or get married or settle down. But then you realize like those people that you do date or marry or whatever are there for you, even like in the pit, like at your lows, and you need that. Like, I mean, well, Matt's been married since what, 12?
1945.
Many happy returns. That's great. That's a solid gold relationship.
Right.
But like, if you have someone that supports you, especially if you're happen to be with someone that's also in like the arts, it's like you have someone for you when you're down. But so I don't know. My thing is, if you are like a 22-year-old person that
if
just
you're
moved to
listening
LA,
to this,
and are like putting off relationships because you're worried about your writing time.
But if it's also still a great blow off line. Look at me. I'm sitting here pretty, just being like, they just needed time for their art, guys.
Tortured artist. I can't wait to see your name on the big screen.
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan.
Well, so now you transition from writing to development.
Yeah.
And now you get shows made. Is that?
Yeah, and it's funny. We've developed with a lot of writers who have come up on our shows on staff.
Right.
Which it's so funny because I feel like, especially right now in this moment, there's so many content creators and so much television, and people are looking to the fresh voiced, executive story editor, co-producer level person more so to create the next thing, as opposed to back in the day. And I talk about these levels, which are kind of confusing in and of themselves, but for those listening at home on a writing staff, right, you start at staff writer and then it goes story editor, executive story editor, co-producer, producer, supervising producer, co-EP, EP. And sometimes when you're really high level, you just do consulting. And I think for a long time, people were very hesitant to give a show to anyone who had not at least hit that supervising producer co-EP mark. Now,
by give a show, you mean like buy a pitch from them, or
develop, put a show on
run?
the air, be like, this person's going, or bring a book to them to develop. I see more and more people going to lower or mid-level writers with exciting voices to develop.
Pretty new people is what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, people who've maybe been on a writing staff twice, maybe for like a few years. And that's really empowering and awesome. And it's how you fix a major pipeline problem we have in this town in terms of getting different, fresh voices in. But I always say to people, like, I wouldn't wish being a showrunner on my worst enemy sometimes, because really having a show that is yours on the air is a tremendous amount of juggling and work and emotional stress and it's so nonstop, and I don't think anyone can understand till they're in it. And having watched people go through years on our shows and then get those opportunities, I'm like, I want everyone to be able to have that preparedness, because it's crazy.
Yeah, you have to get higher up to really understand.
Yes. And you could be paired with somebody great,
sure,
and that works out a lot, but there are a lot of variables in that too, in that partnership.
Have you ever bought a show from someone that's not ever been on any writing staff?
We have. So we made a comedy for ABC that was a hybrid multicam in the style of How I Met Your Mother called Toast.
Oh, and what was hybrid about it?
So it was basically hybrid. Just means it was looked like it was all filmed in front of a live studio audience, but parts were taped. And the concept was you're with the bride and groom. It's the rehearsal dinner, and the messy, drunk, maid of honor gets up to give us toast. And she's telling one story, but you're flashing back to what really happened.
Right.
And over the course of the season, both through the flashbacks, you're getting to realize, like, what is the story of this couple? What are the different perspectives their friends and family have? And in the present day storyline, you're like, are these guys going to even get married tomorrow? Is the damage going to be too much? And then the idea was every season would be a different huge life event. The baby shower, the retirement party, the funeral, whatever.
Right, so is each episode a different speech?
Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
Like one of those rehearsal dinners that gets out of control where everyone's like, no, give me the mic. I got something to say. And just goes on for 3 hours, which can be joyous and amazing.
That scene from Bridesmaids.
Oh, yeah.
Where they're just talking for
just
like an
grab
hour.
the mic back. Can I grab the mic back? But that was based on an idea Scott Foley and Greg Grunberg had years ago on the set of Felicity.
And Scott Foley was just an actor at the time.
Yes. And had done some directing too. He's a great director. And he came in and he was like, I'm going to write this. And we sold it to ABC. And he wrote it. And we paired him with an established guy who had done this before, a great guy, Greg Metler. And we taped the pilot. It did not ultimately go to series. And look, that's the example of the famous actor from one of our shows. But for every one of those, there are also, we're developing a half hour with an amazing improv comedian actress who wrote an amazing spec and had a pretty fleshed out Bible. And we are moving that forward to series at Netflix. So,
and how did she get to you?
I'm going to curse. Are you guys ready for this?
No, I'm ready.
Hold on. Tell me when you're done cursing.
Yeah, I know, right?
Cover my ears.
Kids and dogs out of the room.
Yeah.
It was just a sample brought to me. Her name's Jill Alexander. And
yes.
You know her.
Yeah, she has the same commercial agent as my wife.
She's in a lot
Redhead.
of amazing commercials.
Yeah.
Yes, now blonde.
I've seen her all around.
She's
town.
around.
My wife's an actor and a redhead. So.
Oh yeah, she's the other one, but she's on Silicon Valley too.
Yeah,
Yes, exactly.
She's got
As
a
the
great look.
long-suffering assistant Patrice. Yeah.
Yes.
And I'd read a piece of hers that I also really wanted to make called Type Pussy, which is, I know, that title, huh?
Sure. Pretty
She
good.
does not hold back.
Greedy cat.
Right. Stingy feline.
You're saying about noisy pilots.
Yeah, it was noisy, and it really hit all my sweet spots. I live across from like an exclusive daycare in Silver Lake called Camelot Kids.
Yeah,
Sure.
We did not even try to get there.
It's like run by an Australian supermodel.
Really?
And that was part of the setting of the show, and the other part was like about a band like L7 or Veruca Salt who broke up years ago over a guy. But now their kids are in nursery school together, and oh my God, holy shit, should we tour? And also, we're now in our 40s, and like, what does it all mean? And like, what is it to be, like the idea of how you behaved back then? And
Right.
Because also, I'm not going to lie, there was a year where all I saw were 90s reunions, whether it was like Breeders, Ted Leo, Sebado, like any, what was it, That
NKOTB.
Dog? Oh, NKOTB. Yeah, Step by
They're
Step.
touring right now.
Are they seriously?
Yeah,
I
they
saw
have a
them on
new
the Jenny
album.
McCarthy New Year's Eve shit show.
Oh, boy.
I was like, it is raining in Times Square and all bets are off. But yeah, so it hit all my sweets. I was like, I love this person. I love their voice. And then the next spec she wrote was Sunshine Scouts, which is the one we're making.
Wow.
Oh, cool.
And so in between though, was it like, oh, I love this, we can't make this, and then she sent you the next thing?
Yes.
Yeah. See, because that's an important lesson as well, right?
Yep.
Because it would be easy to be like,
It's
not
also
that into me.
It's one of the like classic, and Jill's an amazing writer, and it's that classic thing of like, don't make when you're really going all out and you're like, here is the script that is going to be my calling card. This is my take it or leave it. This is me. Welcome to it. I think Carrie had spoken to this on her episode, but it's like, do not write the safe thing. Do not write the thing you think will sell.
Right.
Because it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
And what if she would have sent a script that wasn't good first, and then sent Tight Cat?
Can I tell you
script?
what makes you uncomfortable with that P word? The thing, I think about this a lot. Because I will read a script by somebody and just feel like either it's a little green or I don't know exactly what to do with it. I'm one of those people who hate to just have a general meeting with somebody and not know any kind of idea of what I might do with them. It feels like a waste of time for both of us because I want to bring you in when I know I can also then champion you in a month or two
Right.
for a specific staffing thing or a piece of development. But sometimes I'll just be so obsessed with the sample. I'll be like, I don't know what to do, but get in here. We got to meet. But I do always say when I read something I don't love the first time, I say, look, good writer, this is not the one for us. Happy to read a second, because you never know. You just never know if that person was writing something their manager told them to write, or that like was something really close to and personal to them, which is such a great thing, but also sometimes can be a really hard undoing in your first sample to write that super personal thing.
Right. Your SMILF.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm always like, much to the detriment of like Goodbye Time, I'll always read that second thing.
Right. Cool.
Well, good on you.
Or I'll have an amazing person on my team at least start it and tell me it's not also bad.
Good.
Yeah. Don't worry.
So you meet with writers that seem to have potential. Do you ever see like a short film or meet with directors or
absolutely
anything like that?
Yeah, because, and it's interesting because a lot of the times if you have a short film that again is that like, here's my stamp on the industry, here's what I want at my voice, it can sometimes be easier for me to get excited to try to sell you, at least for like an episodic slot, than if you have done 2 episodes of a show I have never seen on like BET or Lifetime or like that sometimes is a
or
more
Go
power.
90.
Or Go 90.
What if you've done 12 episodes on Go 90?
Salt in the wound.
Well, if you have 12
And,
episodes from Go 90, the beauty is you can just send it to me and I can watch that. But you know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, they directed an episode of NCIS New Orleans 2 years ago. I don't know.
Right.
I'll never, or I'll watch it and I'll be like, this is really well done, but it doesn't speak to what I need for my show right now. But sometimes when a great short's just a great short, you're like, get in here. We'll figure it out.
Right. Especially, I think there's something nice about it being wholly digestible as well.
Yes.
Right? Like we were joking, we both have Go 90 series. You're not going to watch all 8 or 12 episodes of our series.
Yeah,
that would
it's like
be
120
insane.
minutes
Right, yeah.
worth of.
You don't know?
With the same credit sequence.
I'll never
the same
forget.
4-minute credit sequence.
I'll never forget when somebody sent me High Maintenance on Vimeo. I watched every
You mean
single.
the best web show of all time?
Listen, that whole thing. I don't know. Maybe it's on HBO. I remember telling every agent I knew, I'm like, you gotta sign these people, and they're like, what?
I genuinely always ask when people bring up High Maintenance, what your second favorite web show is.
That would be the
Wolves of
Burning
Reseda?
Love.
Oh, Burning Love. That's a good reference.
That's a good
Easy.
one. That's a good one. Yeah.
What's your second
The one full of
favorite,
famous
Matt?
people.
Drunk History? Broad City?
Yeah.
Just shows I didn't watch, but
Actually,
I know were
I
web
have
shows
one
first.
too that was a little known one that we loved so much we wound up developing with both of the creators, Alan, Rachel, and Patrick Carlisle's Couple Time.
I do know that show.
Tiny little moments and snippets of the
Yeah,
weird
like
shit couples do when
New
no one's
Yorker
watching.
apartment shit, right?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
so off of that, we wound up developing a show when I was at Ellen's company with them for Fox.
Oh, wow.
So that would be up there in my top 3 for sure.
My line of questioning now is mining your knowledge for how our listeners could eventually sell a show
Sure.
to Shondaland. So how do you find these short
Oren,
films?
you don't listen to this show.
Well, I am like the prototypical
I see what you did
listener of the show, and
Inquiring minds want to know.
sometimes accidentally, like I subscribe to our show for the numbers to double the listenership, and I sometimes accidentally it starts playing on my iPhone. 'Cause I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Good. Anyway, sorry.
Proud of you. To answer your question, if you are out there in the world, kind of outside the Hollywood loop, or even inside the Hollywood loop, but don't have the agent or the manager or the representation, I do think there is. This is the beauty of web series, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you guys would know even more than I would probably how best to get traffic to the content you make, because I'm sure there is great content out there that does not necessarily get dug up and discovered. I think for us, and in terms of our bandwidth and our slate at Netflix, I'm going to be incredibly real and just say, we're not allowed to like get material in from people who are not being brought in by agents and lawyers and managers and things like that. But also, I think the closest thing to kind of finding someone where it might be the bones of a show, even if it was not the traditional way I found them, is actually kind of stand-up, improv, UCB, like somebody kind of making very clear they have a voice and identity and a story that could become something bigger. that might be when, regardless of if you have reps, if you're out there telling your story to storytellers event.
If you're on the Moth Radio Hour.
Yes, that's just a me thing, because for me, it really starts with the story. And sometimes that's in a form of a short. But if I'm not getting to every film festival, or if I'm not, like searching the web.
You're not, right? Like no one can make it to everything.
Not with the volume of work. Now,
Especially
some of the younger
since
people.
you have a million other things going on at the same time.
Well, I'm head of fiction and nonfiction, you guys.
Right. It's not just reality.
Heavy is the head.
It's surreality.
That's right. Now, I do have amazing, young, awesome millennials throughout my office, on my team, outside of my team.
They're watching 6 things at once. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And they're
So you
just
don't
like
mind working with millennials? You're totally cool with that?
I love them. These young people are great about these young people. I sound 70. They are great about making sure we use Slack, which is a great secure. That's not my unpaid endorsement, by the way, so that doesn't count. But it is a great way to share information with each other. And we have whole channels that are just like for very specific, share this great thing you saw or a totally random funny thing you saw. It's a lot of how we discover that pulse. If you're really talking about like, oh, I'm going to go out of my way and hunt someone down to develop something around their work, it usually is more a human telling a story through writing or through performance.
Right.
I guess,
what I'm hearing is, because we were talking a little bit before with Carrie about access, right? And like, I think the thing that we're really honing in on is visibility, right? So you're saying whether it's, something where like something is getting buzz online or you're seeing them on stage, right? Yep. It's about putting yourself out there. And I have often lamented about how, like, as a comedy person, I'm always jealous of the writers who are also doing improv or stand-up, because it's, you see, a set that they did or a clip online or something like that, and it's so easy to go, oh, I love that person's voice. They're so funny.
Yep.
I see their face. I know their name. I'm going to think of them when I'm staffing.
Yeah.
Right. You're
Twitter.
saying
The Twitter phenomenon.
performer.
Exactly. Yeah. Megan Amran. Just like,
Jen Statsky. There's so many people who... And I'm not of the mind that it's like, no, don't even bother trying to be a staff writer at a comedy show. You get discovered on Twitter, or you don't. I don't think that's true either. I think it's a lot about relationships, and like, that's probably one of the best pieces of advice that I don't know that people always fully understand is the way to eventually staff on a show and then develop your material with a company is to start as a writer's PA or a set PA and work your way up.
the hardest job to get in Hollywood.
I know.
People, I think people
They're
that the writer's assistant, that you have to know someone to get that job.
Writer's assistant. I'm talking like my assistant from a few years back, who's now our director of content, Marco. He was a set PA on Scandal.
Awesome.
And I do feel badly for anyone who has like true social anxiety in this town, because like you said, you always have to go to the rap party. So much of it is meeting people and forming relationships. I'll never forget being an assistant.
Just have 3 drinks.
Yes.
Then go talk to the EP.
Listen, or just when I was an assistant, they'd be like, you know about drinks, right? I'm like, yeah, I've had them. And they're like, no, it's a thing. You got to do it.
Yeah.
You have to like set drinks with other assistants who seem like they're real sharp characters.
Yeah.
And
the ones you like, the ones you want.
Yes, and you form those relationships. And I swear to God, it is... when they say Hollywood's, who you know, that sounds shitty in some ways, but it is just who you have relationships with, who you've been in the trenches with.
Right. We had an episode where it's basically me asking Matt, like, what drinks is.
Yeah. I remember as an intern being like, what is drinks? What are you talking about? And I was interning for like a real schmoozy producer. Who I don't think ended up making much. But he had that. He was enjoying the lot gig. Basically, he was just like he'd just gotten his deal set up and was like in New York half the time.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
that's what you do.
Well, I feel like a lot of our show is about, and questions we get a lot about are like the gatekeepers, of Hollywood. And I think we kind of think of it as a dirty word because it seems like some random person is just deciding whether they like you or not, like a bouncer at a club,
right?
That they look at you and decide if you get let in or not. But it really, that's why I'm asking all these questions. Like if your short film is a Vimeo staff pick, what are the odds that someone like you would see it and call them in? And so, but I think kind of what we're getting from you is obviously there's no one way, but just like put yourself out there, make things.
I got to say, be here. Like there is
be here in LA.
Yes, especially for the TV. I left Austin, and let me be real. I left it I left right before Friday Night Lights, the series, picked up production. And I'll never forget someone saying, Alison, they're making a series based on that movie, Friday Night Lights. You should stick around and like try to work it. I'm like, nah, man, I got bigger things. Come here, New York. Come here, LA.
You were leaving Austin when it was good, too.
I know. It's so like small still. And one of my favorite shows of all time. No big deal. Opportunity missed. But for some reason, I was just like, if I don't go now, I'll get so comfortable here and I'll never leave. And I knew that. And hey, I had a detour in New York, which was not the answer ultimately either. Right. But I do tell people this, especially like when I talk to students at Georgetown or UT who reach out about alumni stuff, I'm like, just get a friend and take the plunge. You won't have a job when you first get here. It's terrifying. But it is the only way to kind of be here for the opportunities.
Right. Well, and we were talking before about how, you have to kind of plug into a few different social avenues,
yes.
right? You go to different to barbecues and events and like
kickball leagues and like the totally random
bar
things.
trivia.
Yeah.
Well, I asked this. I think I've asked this probably of all our development people, but a lot of people in general. Just to finish things up, what when you are hearing a pitch for a show or seeing someone, what it makes it good and what makes it bad? I know it's a real vague, general, open-ended question, but you've covered a lot of what you like. But is there anything else that you can kind of?
And I wish I knew what everyone else said, so I don't repeat to get. But I think the kiss of death for a bad pitch, is a cobbled together mosaic of things you've seen from other places, right? The idea that like the pitches that are kind of more fear-based and thinking, well, I better reference things this person will understand or have characters that we all know as archetypes or else it won't be clear. I think the more general it is, the more confusing it is usually, and the more specific you get when you pitch and the more precise and the more unique and true to what you really see the vision being. Don't be afraid of it being weird or kind of tricky to wrap your head around. That's what I respond to. Because even if the first 20 minutes makes a lot of sense and you totally lose me in the last 10. I'm so riveted by that first 20 that I want to know more. And then we can get to the place of me asking you questions. I also think, length. I've been in some pitches where it's 40 minutes gone by of them talking and spittle is forming and they're dying and I'm dying. And I'm like, I just want this to be over for you. And it's not often, but that I think you really do practice that shit. Like have a friend you trust, sit down, time it out, do it again. Like it is an art. It sucks that this is a part of life as a writer when it's so antithetical to what you do.
It's a cruel joke, but that's the rule of the game, basically. Right?
And the best pitches are when you've like made a 20-minute film to accompany them. When you have like a PowerPoint. I think the best pitches are just the ones
you're being sarcastic, just so
to be clear. Sorry. I know my sarcasm does not travel as well when you can't see my face, but I do think always what makes a great pitch is when you sit back and think, how am I going to tell this story? How am I going to get them excited? Think about what got you excited. And what every time you tell your friend in passing about the pitch or when you call your mom and tell her what you're working on or whatever, what's the thing you guys can't actually stop talking about? Like what thing at the core is that kernel that makes everyone want to tell their stories too? That is a perfect pitch. It's the pitch where at the end, no one wants to leave the room because they're still telling stories and experiences. They want you to know that they've lived something like this. They want to ask questions.
They can, for the comedy version, like they're pitching jokes that work in the same universe.
Yes, they can envision episodes of this half hour that reflect hilarious situations and awkward shit they've found themselves in, because what you're getting at, even as specific and weird as your voice is and as your pitch is, there's something really universal about the human experience, whether it's drama or comedy, that everyone like, you hear something, you're like, oh, I remember like a huge story about that. It's the thing that people can't stop talking about.
Yeah,
I know that's a little amorphous, but it's...
No, it's super helpful. I mean, it sounds like, being relatable is helpful. Obviously, coming from a unique standpoint, I feel like I hear a lot of pitches that are just like, I use this word a lot, and I don't know if it's a common word, but like familiar. Like I feel like I've heard something kind of like that or
100%.
Seen kind of like that.
And that's what I mean when it's like, oh, it feels like a piece of something. Like when I leave a pitch and realize it feels like 4 or 5 things mashed up together, that kind of adds up to nothing. as opposed to when I've heard something really unique and I'm not fully sure exactly what the tonal comparison is, but there's something about it I absolutely love. It will beg another conversation.
So do you like it's the rhythm of House of Cards, but with the mystery or the fantasy of Game of Thrones or something like?
I like those when they're really hilarious. I like them when they inherently speak to the contradiction or the surprising nature of the show. Sure. Yes, I think that's really fun to think of two things you just would never think together, but that sort of
like
makes
Sex
sense.
in the City with monks or whatever.
Exactly, like that kind of a thing. Although that's no Sex in the City? I don't know. Yeah. Do monks have sex?
Sex
Is
in
that
the temple.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's when that's useful, especially in a comedy pitch. But a lot of times that is something, and I'm speaking as somebody who's on the producing end of things, that's something that as you and the producer that you're taking the pitch out with get specific about getting ready to go out to network buyers, you may change what you say depending on which network you're pitching. Right. You may reference Insecure at HBO and Pen15 at Hulu. You may have these very specific ways of being like, I know what you've made and I love, so let me tell you why this appeals to me as a place I belong.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Interesting. Yeah. We talked a little bit about, with David Person, about how the pitch is just the very beginning of the process for everyone, and that you have to kind of sell it up the line. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about your experience with that. You walk out of a room, you're like, I love this. Mm-hmm. Is the next step your immediate bosses?
Yeah, I run to Betsy and Shonda. If I've heard something really, especially first Betsy too, because usually I'll bring that poor sucker back so she can hear it if she wasn't there in the room immediately. And that's when we will go into Shonda and get so excited. And look, I guess fundamentally that question you asked me about like what makes a good pitch, I leave that room and I know exactly what I'm going to say to Betsy and Shonda to tell them that this is something worth us pursuing. Mm-hmm. It's very crystallized in my mind. And in 4 sentences or less, I can be like, come on, have you ever heard anything like this? Doesn't that make you cry or laugh? Come on, this is amazing. Right. I think that's a piece of it. A lot of the times, though, I'm also, just to kind of throw it out there again, it is the reading, right? Mm-hmm. It's not just pitches, especially for newer writers. It is more effective, at least for me, especially when I'm not just going to Netflix to make a pilot. It's series-based model.
Yeah. You just have to jump off the deep end, right?
Yes, I need to see that on the page. I need to trust you. I need to know that you've got this and that context and that level. And then that's really easy to run screaming like, I found this great script, tight pussy, which I definitely did.
Sure. I think that there's something interesting to think about just in terms of context, because we were talking about, the ways, that you're a gatekeeper, quote unquote, mm-hmm. right? And I think it's interesting to think about the fact that you are kind of at the top of the game, right? Like Shondaland there's a night. Do you know what I mean? And so
Thursdays, #TGIT, 8 to 11 p.m. on ABC.
Yeah. So to that end, I think that like the level of the pedigree of the writers that are coming in is much more filtered than I think. They're kind of like a entry level sort of world of like smaller cable shows and
like a true TV show.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think, do you ever find that you're staffing or taking talent from these other kind of peripheral sort of smaller cable channels and things like that, or is it still just sort of like it's kind of the farm league of the other Shonda shows? Oh, you mean
like of the people we're developing with?
Yeah.
We've talked about the people who had not been in traditional staffing rooms before those situations. Then there's also just, look, there's really seasoned writers in other camps that we love who we've been able to collaborate with, whether it's us bringing them the kernel of something or them bringing us like a passion project they feel like is uniquely suited for our brand and what we can bring to the table.
Right.
So that's like also a piece of it. But yeah, I definitely, whenever I find a show I love, because I think when you work, primarily so much of what I do is drama in the workspace, even though we are now doing half-hour comedy and comedy drama. But when I go home at night, I want to watch comedy. Right. It is a different vibe, or unscripted. Sure. Sometimes I watch the shows my husband watches about people finding gold and creating moonshine. And yes, exactly. But yeah, I love to watch those shows. And when I do fall in love, I'm looking at every writer on that list.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Right.
And because sometimes very specifically our 1 hours, they need comedy voices in there. Paul William Davies from For the People, I believe we found him off of a half-hour script.
Okay, my last question about pitching is,
Love it.
How important is it to know like the pilot inside and out and like the seasonal arcs? Because I feel like it's something that you hear a lot, like know how the season ends, know where your characters are going.
It depends. I think the know where the season ends, or sometimes the series journey, is a particularly cable and streaming, approach to things.
Sure.
Whereas in the broadcast model, it was very much more when you would pitch, you would spend a lot of time, I would say, on the first act in detail, really bring that person into the world as you see it. And then, talk through some more, broad strokes of like how the rest of it goes, and then get into just like, who are these people at the heart of this story? So the pilot's an important part and it does suck you in, but at some point, whether it's in the middle of the pilot where there's a natural break or when you're done with the pilot, you want to talk about the people, because that's what brings me back to a show time and time again. And I think you also want to talk about, so I'm just going to put my broadcast hat on for a minute. In broadcast, you really do have to think about like, what is the engine? Especially if this is a show that you're saying could go like 15 to 22 episodes. So if it's not a procedural.
And you mean per season?
Per season. Thank you. Yes, total. 2 episode seasons.
Well,
yeah, no, listen.
Netflix has like 5 season shows that have like 16 episodes.
Exactly. So in the broadcast side, it's what doctors are we following every week? What kind of cases are we seeing? Or like, in Lost, there's a device. You're going back in flashbacks to learn more about these people as you uncover the mystery in the present. You do have to have some sense of that. And then way later down the road, if your pilot's made and it's brought in to be presented to the higher ups, they're going to need to understand, like, what is, generally speaking, what are some of the big milestone moments in this first season? Where kind of do you want to go? What are some examples of episodes you're dying to do? Right. It does help.
And what if you're pitching like The Office or Parks and Rec or Friends, like a show that is not, I think so episodic.
You're talking about sitcoms, right? So I think what's core is you want to talk about what the situation in the pilot is. Like the classic pilots are Taxi, right? The whole idea of Taxi is like magically the payphone where they work is you can call anywhere for free. And so you learn about all your important characters by who they choose to call. And then it evolves into a storyline where a guy rushes to an airport to see his daughter before she goes to study abroad, and it's moving. Cheers, right? There is that premise to it of like Diane, the outsider. She's just waiting for her fiance to get the ring he's going to propose to her with. And through her being the newbie, she interacts with each of the people there to set up what the fun of the show is. So I think it's really important to understand, like, through what story or device that's not overly complicated with plot are we going to meet these people? Because again, it's so rare that people tune in for plot. Even when you talk about like Shondaland, TGIT, OMG moments, it's not just because somebody shoots somebody else or bludgeons someone or escapes somewhere. It's because you're so worried for that person. This is another thing I say in pitches. When you pitch a pilot, you should elicit in the person hearing like everything you're saying, emotions. They should be nervous for somebody. They should be worried. They should be rooting for something to happen or thinking they know what will happen and then you surprise them. Because that's the core of it. And I think in those comedy pilots, you just want to know like, oh, what's the fun way we're going to meet all these people who are going to keep us coming back every single episode? Right. And what fundamentally, in terms of the character dynamics and relationships, will continue to generate conflict in comedy? Right? Like, The Office wouldn't be The Office without Dwight and Jim. Or Jim and Pam, right? The Office wouldn't be The Office without Michael and everyone. That's what you want to really make sure you nail home in that pitch.
And those are the 3 beats of that Office pilot, right?
Yes, totally. And I haven't seen it in a lot. Actually, I say yes so enthusiastically. I actually don't think I've seen it in a while.
Remember, it's the one...
It's really the British one, shot for shot.
It basically, yeah. It's like the stapler and the jelly.
Oh, right, Gareth.
Yeah.
In the British one. But yeah, that's what I always tell people, like, if they remember nothing else about a sitcom pitch, they'll remember really specific characters who really don't get along or really do. That is all it is when you think about it.
Right.
Drama's more complicated.
Yeah.
got to keep them on the edge of their seat at that end of Act 1 and the end of the episode. They got to be like, wait, what?
How do you get away with murder?
Well, awesome. Well, thanks so much for
I love being
coming.
on here. I hope it was helpful. And
Wonderful. So great.
you know what? I think I've learned something on this podcast. I feel like, why am I not just kind of once in a while still checking out the Funny or Die or the,
Staff picks are the way to go, I think.
Vimeo staff
Yeah.
picks? I think that's somehow my friend who turned me on High Maintenance found it.
You know what else is worth checking out is Short of the Week.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Short of the Week is a little more
narrative
like
oriented.
curated in a
Oh,
way
I like that.
that would be helpful to, like, if you're looking for comedy you want to watch a fun comedy short or a relationship short, or they kind of organize them in a way that's good.
That's fantastic.
But if you really want to see amazing work, there's this website. It's called directedbyoren.com. I don't know.
Oh,
Who-
wait, hold on. Let me write that down.
Yeah.
Is that http://?
It's actually 2 front slashes, but
Oh,
most
front slashes,
people
forgive
call
me.
them backslashes, so it's okay.
The
I was
engineering
an
background.
engineer.
Oh, man. Is that GeoCities? But yeah. Wait, unpaid endorsements?
That's what we're doing next.
Unpaid endorsements.
I got one actually. Oren, tell me if I've endorsed this one before. Inspired by our conversations. Have you guys ever seen the movie The TV Set?
Oh, John Ritter? No.
No.
No, I'm thinking
that's
of...
Click.
No, it's not Click.
Snap.
It's something else like that, though.
Yeah, where
With
he
the-
changes channels and he like goes into the show.
Yes. Wait, what's the... but
Oh,
the
Click is the Adam Sandler one.
Wait,
Yeah.
we'll think of that. We'll come back to it. What's the TV set?
The
Because I
TV
have heard
Set
it.
is Jake Kasdan.
Okay.
I think wrote and directed. It's basically like, I haven't endorsed this, but I'm going to stick to it anyway.
No, never.
It's a movie feature. It was on Netflix for a long time that basically is about, creating a TV show. Like, actors are like testing for network and all this stuff. And it's basically about David Duchovny playing Judd Apatow creating a TV show.
Oh.
It's like him and Justine Bateman are like kind of a couple. He's got back problems. And Jake Kasdan was like a baby writer on Freaks and Geeks kind of like during that whole thing.
Oh.
And it's like very like fly on the wall. Like there's network. Sigourney Weaver plays a network executive.
In. Sold.
It's pretty great. It's pretty
Is
enjoyable.
it available on Amazon Prime? How do I get this?
I would be
Netflix.
surprised if it's not on Amazon Prime.
What's
Yeah.
it called again? TV Set?
The TV Set.
Stay tuned. It's a John Ritter movie.
Oh, that's it.
Thank you. I just remember him on a game, like spread eagle attached to a game show wheel.
Yes.
Like, I can't get out of this.
yeah. I'm stuck in the TV.
Yeah, let's make a deal.
Yeah.
So that is the image of my brain. The TV set.
The
yes.
TV set.
Wait, where did you see it?
I saw it on Netflix like years ago.
Like
Right,
the
and Netflix
DVD
will
came in
cycle
your
through
mail?
Yeah,
some.
yeah.
I still do Netflix DVD
No,
service.
you
Really?
don't.
Awesome.
Get
That's
away from
awesome.
it. I love
Blu-ray?
it because if I really want to see something, especially as a reference for something I'm working on right now, I
Yeah.
love the idea that like, okay, within 2 days I could have it in my mailbox.
Wait, they still do it?
Yes.
Yes.
And there's always one that I watch right away and one that sits on my coffee table for 7 months.
That's how I own
Someday
Bridge
I'll
of
watch
Spies.
Drive. Like, I know I'm supposed to see Drive and everybody loves it. I don't know why it's sitting there still.
You know what?
Tell me.
I don't know if
what
it
to do.
holds
it's-
up on DVD years later.
Yeah, I think
but I
that's true.
loved it in the theater.
I loved it in the theater. If your instinct is like you're not gonna watch it, skip it. Honestly,
Okay.
like it's pretty good.
Okay.
But like it's so specific. Like if you watch the trailer and you're like, I want to see this,
Right.
go for it. But like the trailer is pretty indicative of. It's just Ryan
Excellent.
Gosling like in cool lighting and like a great soundtrack.
Maybe I do want to watch it.
You know what
I'll
you
watch
should
it
watch,
tonight.
It's pretty
though,
good.
is the Every Frame a Painting video about Drive.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you know that?
Every frame of painting video.
Yeah, there's this guy, Tony Zhu. He made this series on Vimeo called Every Frame a Painting where
He's like the godfather of modern video essays.
about film, like film related. He did like videos. He'll do a video
This
about
sounds
Fincher,
awesome.
why Fincher's coverage is more interesting than someone else's coverage, why Jackie Chan movies have better action than Chris Nolan films. You know,
Oh.
It's pretty great.
right.
Yeah.
and really
Yeah.
well done.
Like exceptionally well done.
Yeah, like the Buster Keaton one, it's like amazing.
So good.
Yeah, like in his movies, they will like show a punch or something. Like when they cut from like one angle to another angle, they'll show you a few extra frames
Of like repeated
but
action.
repeat the action a little bit. But like in American action movies, they'll usually like cut out a few frames to make it look faster and more impactful.
Oh.
But he talks about how just so much more real, like a Jackie Chan action scene feels because it is real. And in American cinema. It's like, mostly cheated in various ways.
I love this guy. All right. I'm going to look it up. 2 things for me. 2 unpaid endorsements. I mean, I feel like someone's already said mine. That's my concern.
Oh, no, that's okay.
That's everyone's concern.
I'm obsessed with Pen15 on Hulu.
Oh, no one has said it.
I think it's the show boys and girls alike should all be watching. There's something about it. It gives me all of it's like the Freaks and Geeks feels with a much more absurdist lens. Mm-hmm. The premise is Maya Erskine and Anna Konkle. If I'm butchering their names, I apologize.
I think that's right, actually.
Thank you. I've been doing my homework as I've gone obsessively down a rabbit hole, but basically they play their 13-year-old selves in the year 2000.
Right, but they're adults.
At age 31. But the rest of the cast is 13-year-olds. And it is so bizarre to see them lusting after 13-year-old boys and interacting with like the typical mean girls who like are popular for no reason, who are 12, who are their arch enemies. And I've got to give not only them credit for something that's so weird, it kind of shouldn't work, but fully does because of their utter and total commitment to the embodying that spirit. But also to the teen actors, where I'm like, it's almost like when I watch The Wire, I'd be like, where do they find these perfect humans? That is what I feel in Pen15 on the comedy side of it, where I'm just like, not only are they nailing it as writers and directors and creators with Sam Zwiebelman. It's truly amazing. In that it can make you guffaw with laughter and also feel like you've been punched in the gut. I treat it like a horror series. Most of the time I watch it, I spend saying out loud, "Oh my God, no, don't, no, I can't watch." And it's because the stuff that they're going through and the confidence with which they approach these situations they should have none in is utterly amazing and gut-wrenching and funny. I love it so much.
I'll check it out. I heard them, they were on The Frame or something recently, and they talked about how they have to interact with these actors and what they tell them before they do the scenes with them. Like, hey, I'm going to be really weird, but that they're just like really, that all these young actors are really amazing.
And the soundtrack's fantastic and spot on too.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, it's just like, here comes the Lifehouse that really takes you back. And it's not even like I was that age. I'm older than they are. So it's not even that specificity of the nostalgia so much as just like you realize, again, there are these universal truths about what it is to be 13.
I think there's also something about like music not being quite so fragmented. Right, like you didn't have top 40 still meant something a little bit then. So you like, there's no way I would hear whatever the contemporary equivalent to Lifehouse is.
Yeah, or
I haven't ever heard.
They also only had one hit too. To be fair, sorry, Lifehouse, but it's true.
Right.
But no, and it is these funny things they tie into. Like there's a whole episode where they get obsessed with AIM and trying to talk to boys on it. And I only had AIM in college.
Instant Messenger.
Yes, AOL Instant Messenger. But my best friend and I definitely in 1993 went on a little thing I like to call CompuServe, looking for cool area dudes in the Jersey Shore who totally talked to us like they were 14, but I'm pretty sure weren't. But I was like, oh my God, it's like these 2 women have seen my very soul. But then you realize, no, there are just these rites of passage that all kind of converge in a way that makes you feel less alone in this world too. Like you all were weird growing up.
Right, awesome. Not me.
Oren was never
but I've
weird.
heard people are weird. Well, this is when I would usually like come in with something random like the Swiffer Wet Jet, but I'm also gonna endorse a show that have we talked about Russian Doll on this podcast? I know
love
it's like
Russian Doll.
I know it's so popular, but I think my hesitation is probably anyone who hasn't watched the show has the same hesitation, which is like, it's a show about someone that keeps reliving the same day over and over.
Groundhog Day, I like it.
Yeah, Groundhog Day and Edge of Tomorrow and every one of those shows, Happy Death Day or whatever.
Happy Death Day, there you go.
But there is a device in the show that makes it different from all those things, but you have to watch a couple episodes. So I just and my wife was like, yeah, you just watch a few episodes.
It goes deep too. That was one. I mean, it was a toss up for me between Pen15 and Russian Doll. So I love that you've talked about it. I've never had a reaction to a show quite like it's one of those in terms of like totally kind of living the human spectrum of emotion over the course of a series, not just in one episode, but it was this gradual existential craziness that the show goes in. Again, you can't talk about the details.
But kind of some of the best cliffhangers I've seen in a long time.
Yes.
And it's 8 half-hour episodes, and I watched 6 of them one night after my wife went to sleep.
Right.
And Natasha Lyonne is incredible. And she directed the finale.
And she wrote.
And with Leslie Headland. And I mean, like, they're all fantastic, everyone involved.
And the art direction and wardrobe and styling and like lighting, everything is like really
There's
excellent.
an awesome cat actor in it. He's so good. You guys, keep an eye on this guy.
Good to know. I do some cat food commercials from time to time.
Matt's a cat expert.
This guy has got it. He's New York based.
Okay.
Maybe he'd work as a local.
I don't work with New York cats. But the final episode,
you spend so much money boarding cats. I did do cat commercials at the beginning of the year, and I got their rooms were nicer than mine. We had a suite, so each breed has its own room, and anyway.
Yes,
I love that you picked Russian Doll. I feel the same.
And the final episode also has like some incredible editing and visual. I mean, visually the whole show is really nice, but the final episode I feel like has some new devices we haven't really seen before. Oh. So I don't know. I ended up really liking it.
Fantastic casting too.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, if we want to find out more about you, what do we tune into Dawson's Speak
on G-Talk Live in the year 1999.
Perfect.
I have a Twitter.
Oh, cool.
It's Alison Eakle, very inventive.
EAKLE.
Mm-hmm. And
Eakle.
Alison with one L.
Oh, right.
There's some angry politics. There's some social engagement. And then there's just cat gifs and stuff from TikTok and retweets.
Okay, well, if you want to find out about us or send us your pitches for us to forward to Alison, email us at
exactly.
justshootitpod@gmail.com. You can find out everything about our podcast at our website, justshootitpodcast.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
All the stuff.
All the things at Just Shoot It Pod. I'm on Instagram as O Kaplan and on Twitter as @SmiteyPyleg.
I'm at Mr. Maddenlow on everything. I'd like to point out this is the first time Oren got it right. You did it, buddy.
You knew my own Instagram name.
O Kaplan?
Yeah. How often do you look at your own Instagram name?
Well, that's O Kaplan, my Kaplan is what I thought of immediately.
There we go.
Yeah, everyone's Kaplan.
This episode was produced by Madeline Rosewat, edited by Jay McCullough. Our webmaster is Ewan Williams, and the music you're listening to right now is by the artist Jazar and provided by the Free Music Archive.
Yeah, rate us on iTunes if you get a chance, and we will catch you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.